Welcome back to the deep dive. Um, I want to start today by taking you on a little trip. We're going back in time.
Oh, I love a time travel setup.
Right. It is Monday, April 17th, 1967, and the time is exactly 9 p.m.
So the setting is Elmira, New York,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the residence of Rob and Jane, or Joseph and Rupert, for those of you who follow the entity names in the material.
Exactly. And I really want to set the vibe immediately because the source material for today opens with this incredible description of the atmosphere. It creates this very specific mood.
It really does.
It's dark, it's night, and there is what the notes call a rather unusual rain and lightning storm taking place.
It's the kind of weather that just forces you inward. But there is a specific detail in the notes that really caught my attention. It says the lightning was flashing silently.
Yes, that stood out to me too, the silent lightning.
It creates this sensory dissonance. You have the silent flash illuminating the room, and then because the storm is rolling over the surrounding mountains, there's a
A
delay.
huge delay.
Yeah, several seconds later, you get this heavy, distant rolling thunder.
It is such a cinematic image. It's chilling, honestly. You can picture the living room, the lamps are on, maybe it's a little drafty in the house. You have this dramatic, gothic light show happening outside the window. It feels very isolated, very haunted house.
And this is the beauty of this specific session. While the external world is doing this high drama performance, the internal world of the house is incredibly mundane. It is painfully human.
Right. Because Rob is not sitting there contemplating the mysteries of the universe. He is stressing out. He is having a terrible Monday.
He is having a very relatable Monday.
He spent his entire supper time spiraling because their car is acting up. He's convinced it's finished. He's looking at his bank account, looking at the car, and just thinking, I cannot afford to fix this. And I absolutely cannot afford a new one.
It is the universal language of stress. That pit in your stomach when the check engine light comes on, or you hear that grinding noise when you shift gears. It feels like an existential threat.
It really does. And that is exactly where we are starting today. We are doing a deep dive into session 335 of the early sessions, book 8 of the Seth Material. And the date of record, as we established, is April 17th, 1967.
And this isn't just a lecture on metaphysics. What makes this session so special is that it is a collision. You have a deep dive into the mechanics of reality creation, specifically regarding money and cars, interrupted by the mechanics of the actual physical storm outside.
It's the internal weather meeting the external weather.
Precisely.
So our mission today is twofold. First, we're going to unpack the connection Seth draws between our internal psychic climate, and I love that phrase, and our physical circumstances. We need to understand why Rob's car is breaking down, according to Seth.
Right, the root cause.
Yeah. And second, we're going to look at why Seth, a non-physical entity, had to cut the transmission short because of what was happening in the ground outside.
It really challenges our understanding of what channeling actually is. It suggests it is not just a voice in a head, it is an energetic interaction with the environment.
Before we get into the car trouble and the lightning, we do need to get the housekeeping out of the way. This deep dive will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
And we must give credit where it is due. The Seth material we are discussing is published by the New Awareness Network.
If you find today's discussion interesting, and if you've ever stressed about money, I guarantee you really need to go to the source. We encourage you to study the Seth Material books and visit the New Awareness Network website and bookstore at sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions.
There is nothing quite like reading the sessions in their original context.
Yeah.
We are highlighting the gold, but the mine is vast.
Okay. Let's get into the room. It's 1967. The thunder is rolling. Rob is grumpy. Enter Seth. Now, usually when a friend is venting about their car breaking down, the social contract dictates that you say, oh man, that sucks. I'm so sorry. Does Seth do that?
Not even a little bit.
Not at all.
Seth is not here to offer tea and sympathy. He's here to offer a correction. He bypasses the emotional validation, which Rob probably wanted, and goes straight for the root cause. His opening salvo is blunt. He tells him, you must watch your expectations.
You must watch your expectations. It is the absolute last thing you want to hear when you're broke.
It is. But Seth prefaces this by saying, I am speaking in highly practical terms. That is key. He isn't speaking metaphorically. He says, your expectations literally create your life as you know it.
I want to pause on that word literally. I think we hear that phrase a lot in pop spirituality, create your reality. It's almost become a cliche. But reading this session, Seth seems to be describing something more mechanical.
He is describing a mechanism, yes. We need to move past the slogan. Seth tells Rob that his attitude toward transportation isn't just a reaction to a bad car. It is the cause of the bad car.
Wow.
Rob believes firmly that he cannot afford the kind of car he wants. And Seth says, because of that firm belief, this will be literally true.
So by believing he's broke, he is essentially locking the door to the bank vault from the inside.
That is a great analogy.
Yeah.
Seth explains that these beliefs form what he calls a psychic climate. Think of it like a weather system. If your internal weather is, I can't afford this, you're creating a climate where financial drought is the only possibility. Seth says this belief automatically shuts you off. It acts as a barrier.
But hold on. I can hear you listening right now, and myself, frankly, asking, isn't Rob just being realistic? He looks at the numbers in the ledger, the numbers are low, so he expects difficulty. That feels rational. That feels like being a responsible adult.
And that is exactly where the trap lies. Seth argues that what Rob considers realistic, his pessimism, is actually highly impractical. This is a major reframe.
It flips the whole concept upside down.
It does. Usually we think of the dreamer as impractical and the cynic as practical. Seth says no. If you are cynical about your finances, you are solidifying the poverty. You are doing the work to keep yourself poor. That is not practical. That is self-sabotage.
So realism in this context is actually just a commitment to the current limitation.
Exactly. You are reinforcing the walls of the box you are stuck in.
There's this great line where Seth says, your expectations alone will change your material circumstances. And he calls this the rule of expectation.
The rule of expectation. It sounds like a law of physics, doesn't it?
It does, like gravity.
And in Seth's framework, it functions like gravity. Gravity doesn't care if you are a good person or a bad person. If you step off a ledge, you fall. The rule of expectation is neutral. It just responds to the input.
Right, it's just a formula.
Yes. If you expect a breakdown, you invite the breakdown.
Mm.
Seth says that if Rob believed he could afford the car, that belief would in itself form the circumstances that will make such an automobile literally possible.
It's the form the circumstances part that trips people up. We think, okay, I'll believe it, and then I'll feel better. But Seth is saying the physical atoms, the events, the coincidences, they shift based on that expectation.
He mentions attractions. He says the belief causes attractions where physical circumstances change. It's almost magnetic. You become a magnet for the solution or the problem, depending on that polarity of expectation.
So let's get into the specifics of Rob's situation, because this isn't just about a car. The car is just the symptom. The disease is his relationship with money. Seth basically tells Rob, your beliefs are keeping you from bettering your financial situation.
And he identifies a really specific, really relatable conflict in Rob. He says Rob reads the material. He refers to it as the universal mind book, which is a lovely metaphor for accessing wisdom, but there is a distortion. Rob accepts these ideas on theoretical grounds.
Oh, I felt called out by that phrase.
I think we all do.
It is so easy to sit there and nod and say, yes, mind over matter, consciousness creates reality. But then the bill comes, and you go, well, that's nice philosophy, but in the real world, I'm short $50.
That is the crux of the issue. Seth says Rob suspects these ideas are impractical in your actuality, and that suspicion is the killer. As long as you categorize this as nice theory but not real life, you have created a boundary where it cannot affect your real life.
Yeah.
You've quarantined the magic.
You've quarantined the magic. I like that. So why does Rob do this? Why do any of us do this? Why is it so hard to just expect the money?
Seth does a little psychoanalysis here. He points to a stubborn resistance rooted in Rob's childhood. Now, the source doesn't give us the gory details of Rob's childhood in this specific session, but Seth identifies the effect of that childhood. He says Rob is caught between two battling attitudes.
A battle of attitudes.
Yes. On one side, a desire for austerity, and on the other, a desire for physical materials.
Desire for austerity. That's such a fascinating conflict because usually we assume everyone wants to be rich. We assume the desire for goods is the default. But Seth is suggesting part of Rob actually wants to be broke.
Exactly. Think about the archetype of the starving artist. Rob is a painter. In our culture, and certainly in the 1960s, there's this idea that there is something noble about struggling, that money is dirty, that if you are comfortable, you've sold out. Or maybe it's a Depression-era mentality, that having things makes you vulnerable because they can be taken away.
Right. So you have the conscious mind saying, I want a new Chevy. But the subconscious mind is saying, austerity is safe. Austerity is holy.
Precisely. You have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake.
Oh, I.
And what happens to the car?
It stalls.
The engine burns out. Seth says this resistance allows Rob to cheat himself. You can't manifest abundance if a secret part of you prizes poverty.
It's like trying to order a meal while the person next to you is screaming, I'm not hungry, into the waiter's ear.
That is a vivid image, but
Yeah.
yes, The signal is completely confused.
So what's the solution? Because Rob at this time is an artist. He wants to paint. He wants to write. He doesn't want to go out and get a soul-crushing 9 to 5 just to pay for a new Chevy.
And Seth validates that. This is the empowering part. Seth says, it goes without saying that a full-time job would better the financial situation. That's the conventional path. The known door. But he says that is not what he is referring to.
This is the what-if scenario.
Yes. Seth claims their finances could improve without changing their work schedule, without giving up the art. He says doors would open that you do not know existed.
Doors that you do not know existed. That is the key phrase for me. Because when we stress about money, we usually run through a list of known doors. I can work more hours, I can sell something, I can rob a bank. We have a list of logical steps.
And our anxiety comes from the fact that none of those known doors look appealing or viable. We look at the list and say, I don't want to do any of these. Seth is asking for a surrender to the unknown. The unknown door could be a surprise inheritance, a sudden drop in prices, a gift, a new client falling into your lap. But you can't see those doors from the vibration of I'm broke.
You have to create the psychic climate first, and then the door appears in the mist.
You have to expect the solution before you can see the method of the solution.
I love that. It takes the pressure off figuring it out. But okay, we are deep in this lesson. Seth is really hammering home this point about money and resistance. And then the vibe shifts.
It shifts dramatically.
It's around 9:25 p.m. The session notes say Jane's voice is okay, but the lightning is still flashing. And suddenly, Seth stops talking about cars and starts talking about the weather.
And not just small talk. He announces that the physical climate is poor for a session.
Which is funny because usually you think of spooky storms as the perfect time for a seance. It's classic horror movie stuff. The darker the storm, the stronger the ghosts.
True, that's the Hollywood version. But Seth explains the physics of it. He says the electrical currents are not working to our advantage. And he gets very specific. It is not just the storm itself. It is a changed ionization of the surface of the ground.
Ground ionization. We are getting into some fringe science here.
We are. He notes that this is peculiar to the spring season. So it's a combination of the season, the rain, and the high electrical content of the atmosphere.
So what is actually happening to this signal? If we think of Seth as a radio broadcast, what is the storm doing to the frequency?
Seth explains that instead of a steady flow of electromagnetic current, which creates a clear channel, there's an erratic bombardment.
Erratic bombardment. That sounds intense.
It does. It affects psychic affairs. Think of it like trying to tune a delicate instrument while someone is banging a drum next to you, or trying to stream a high-definition movie on bad hotel Wi-Fi. The signal-to-noise ratio is all off.
It really grounds the phenomenon, doesn't it? It treats channeling not as this mystical, unstoppable force that transcends everything, but as something subject to environmental conditions, like, sorry, can't come through clearly, the air is too thick.
It demystifies it completely. It suggests that consciousness interacts with electromagnetism. If the air is full of chaotic static, the telepathic connection suffers. We are biological machines, after all. Our brains run on electricity. If the ambient electricity is chaotic, our reception is chaotic.
And I love this part. Seth isn't mad about it. He actually points out the silver lining. He says, if it is somewhat bothersome to me, it is of great benefit to growing things.
This is such a beautiful shift in perspective. The same ionization that disrupts the communication is feeding the garden. Seth says it quickens the chemical responses of plant life.
That is so cool. It connects the invisible to the visible. The energy is wild and chaotic, which is bad for a focused conversation, but it's perfect for waking up the earth.
It reinforces the idea that we are all part of one energy system. The plants, the storm, the humans, the channeled entity, it's all interacting. And Seth mentions one other thing that gets affected by this ionization. Did you catch that?
The birds. The birds.
He says these circumstances affect the habits of birds.
And projections and dreams. Right. So imagine this. It's 1967, a spring storm. The lightning is hitting the ground, changing the ionization. The plants are drinking it up and growing faster. The birds are acting weird because their internal magnetic navigation is fuzzy. The medium can't channel properly. And the humans inside are probably having crazy dreams.
It paints a picture of a totally interconnected ecosystem of energy. We aren't separate from the weather. Our minds aren't separate from the storm.
So because of this erratic bombardment, Seth decides to pull the plug. He says, I am going to end the session directly for this reason.
And I love the tone here. It's very polite, but also a little sassy.
Oh, it is total sass. He says, if you feel cheated, my friends, then you may, if you wish, hold a brief session tomorrow. This is up to you.
It's the if you feel cheated for me, like, I'm giving you gold here, but if you need more, fine.
I just explained the secrets of financial abundance and the secret life of plants, but sure, if you feel shortchanged, let's meet tomorrow.
It shows his personality. He's not a robot.
Yeah.
He's navigating these constraints with a bit of humor.
So the session ends early. It's only 9:43 p.m. Jane wakes up. She says she felt no trouble, but she felt that Seth was involved at his end, like he was busy wrestling with the static.
But then comes the detail that gave me goosebumps. This is the part that lingers.
The localization.
The localization.
Describe this for us, because this changes the scene from a lecture to a ghost story.
So normally when the session ends, Jane snaps back, and the energy of Seth dissipates or withdraws. But this time, because of the storm or the ionization, the connection doesn't just cut off cleanly. Jane says she felt Seth was still around.
And not just around in an abstract way, not just in the ether.
No. She felt he was localized right beside her on the divan. She felt him standing just beside and in front of her.
Okay, picture that. You're sitting on your couch. It's dark. Thunder is rolling outside. You just finished speaking in a trance. And suddenly you physically feel a personality standing 6 inches away from you, just looming.
And neither of them could see anything. It wasn't a visual apparition. It was pure feeling.
Yeah.
Mass presence.
That is almost scarier.
In a way, yes. It implies a density. The atmospheric conditions that prevented him from speaking through her voice seemingly kept his energy sort of stuck in the room, or at least made his presence more palpable in the physical space.
It's like the static electricity held him there. Static cling? Ghost edition?
Static cling is a terrible but accurate way to put it. The electromagnetic environment acted like a glue.
So there they are, Rob, Jane, and an invisible Seth just hanging out in the dark while the lightning flashes silently. It is such a cinematic ending to the session.
It really is. And it reinforces the theme of the night. The psychic climate inside the room, the fear about the car, was thick. The physical climate outside the storm was thick, and the barrier between the two was very, very thin.
It brings us back to the core message. We tend to think of our thoughts as these airy-fairy things that live inside our heads, and the physical world as this hard concrete thing out there. But this entire session, from the car trouble to the lightning, is saying no. It's all the same stuff.
Exactly. The belief about the car is a force. The lightning is a force. The ionization is a force. They're all pushing and pulling on each other.
So if we want to synthesize this, if we want to take this strange Monday night in 1967 and apply it to our lives today, staring at our own check engine lights, what are the big takeaways? Let's just bullet point them out.
I think the first takeaway on that list is the practicality of expectations. We need to stop viewing our doubts and fears as being realistic. We need to see them for what they are. They're architectural blueprints. If you're drawing a dungeon, don't be surprised when you end up living in one.
That is huge. Being a pessimist isn't being smart. It's being a bad architect.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next on the list?
The second takeaway is about that resistance. If you are stuck in a financial loop or any kind of loop, you have to look for the desire for austerity. What part of you is saying no to the abundance? What part of you is keeping the door closed because it feels safer?
Right, because negative beliefs are faithfully reproduced just as much as positive ones. And that leads right into the third point. Realizing that there are doors you do not know exist. We don't have to engineer the solution. We just have to engineer the expectation. And you can actually improve your life without just working harder.
Yes. And finally, the connection to the environment. Even distinct entities like Seth are subject to electromagnetic conditions. We are biological, electromagnetic beings. The weather affects us. The seasons affect us. We are not just brains in jars. We are part of this erratic bombardment of energy.
So be kind to yourself when the ionization is off. Maybe don't try to channel or make major financial decisions during a massive solar flare.
Or at least be aware of the interference.
I have a provocative thought to leave you with. Seth mentioned that this storm energy affects projections and dreams.
Yes.
So the next time there's a massive storm in your area, instead of just putting in earplugs or watching a movie, pay attention to your dreams that night.
That is a brilliant experiment.
Are they more vivid? Are they chaotic? Are you being bombarded by the same energy that is feeding the plants in your garden?
It really makes you wonder what kind of information is riding on that lightning.
Exactly. Maybe the storm isn't just noise. Maybe it's a broadcast we just don't know how to tune into yet.
A fascinating possibility.
Well, this has been quite a journey. From a broken down car to a lightning storm to a ghost on the couch.
Just another Monday night for Seth and his students.
If you want to open doors you didn't know existed, a great place to start is by opening a book. Seriously, go check out the source material. Visit sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions. Dive into the new Awareness Networks catalog. There is so much more in there than we could cover in one deep dive.
We barely scratched the surface of what Seth has to say about the nature of reality.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into session 335.
It's been a pleasure.
Good evening, everyone, and remember, watch your expectations.
They are watching you.